Welcome dear friends, welcome to Veganica channel, and today we will have very difficult topic as we've been recently observing another battle over usage or misusage of the word Holocaust referring to animals. James Aspey has recently been using this notion referring to animals. He has uploaded some posts on his social media which are broadly discussed by others, also by vegans who oppose to this usage. Yesterday I saw the video from Joey Carbstrong channel and also from the Cranky Vegan channel. And as a member of the nation where the modern Holocaust took place, I think I need to say a few words about this. Is it okay to use the word Holocaust referring to animals? What is the original meaning of the word? And what is another historical meaning of the word? And another question, is it okay to use the word Holocaust referring to genocide? This will be another question, which probably you have never been asked. Alright, let's start from the beginning. Holocaust is a biblical word. You will find it in the Bible. In the English Bible, I found it 282 times. It was replaced by the word burnt offering, although originally the word was Holocaust. This is the correct word because the Holocaust means fully burnt and it means animal sacrifice for the God. So absolutely it is correct to pronounce the word Holocaust referring to animals. We may discuss whether it is still correct to use it referring to human and why it was used referring to human. Let's get back to this idea of animal sacrifice for God. We know that historically, actually, not only animals had been used as a offering, as a sacrifice for the god. In some ancient cultures also human were used as a sacrifice. Evidence of ritual animal sacrifice has been seen in ancient Hebrew, Greeks, possibly existed before that. Evidence of ritual human sacrifice can be found back to at least pre-Columbian civilization of Mesoamerica, as well as in European civilizations. Varieties of ritual non-human sacrifice are practiced by numerous religions also today, until today. Animal sacrifice and Holocaust is, the exact meaning is holy burned. So this is kind of a sacrifice where the offering for the God is burned. Is it fully burned? We will see, but this notion, Holocaust, is present in Bible also in places where majority of the meat is consumed by priests and only inedible, the worst parts are burned for the God. It's still called Holocaust. Basically, the idea of giving offering to the God, giving Holocaust to the God is kind of trade. It's a very primitive thinking of those primitive nations that if I give you something, the God, you also are supposed to give me back something. So it's treating animals as a part of property, as belongings. So those humans like Moses and his family, Levites, then their sons and grandsons, they used to consider animals as part of their property. So general idea of giving a god Holocaust, bloody offering, assumed that animal's life belonged to the human and he's the owner and he's giving this to God. While today we wouldn't agree and today we should reject and condemn the whole idea of Holocaust in the Bible, in Quran, and in all religions and cultures. People were offering to God what doesn't belong to them. And they were expecting something in return. So this was kind of a trade with the God. And that is original meaning of the Holocaust. Today I will focus especially on biblical Holocaust, and this is because this is kind of the violence of the evil which is being perpetrated until today. And I want to focus on especially precise meaning of this word Holocaust, because James Aspey by Holocaust meant factory farms and slaughterhouses. Is it precise? Is it okay? Why the word Holocaust has been used referring to human at the first place? What is so special in biblical Holocaust? What is so special that somebody had the idea to call the events of the contemporary world with this name? And why the biblical word had been replaced in modern translations by burnt offering? I read somewhere that they had to replace this word Holocaust in Bible, which is so massively present in Old Testament, because Holocaust word already lost its good reputation due to this new meaning. I read that biblical Holocaust had positive meaning because it referred to animals, so it's positive thing to torture to death the animals. But it has the new negative meaning because something bad happened to people. Therefore, the word Holocaust was replaced by burnt offering. As vegans, we should never accept this language trick. So therefore, whenever I will be reading, from now on, whenever I will be citing the Bible, I will always remember to read Holocaust, where I will see the expression burnt offering. Unfortunately, I didn't think about it when I had this last debate with Christian. I didn't think about it. But from now on, yes, I will remember. And also, I'm asking all you vegans, please be aware of those special tricks covering the evil being done towards animals. So it's very, very important to emphasize right now that it's not the case that we are using the word Holocaust referring to animals as a metaphor or analogy to humans' Holocaust. It's exactly the opposite. Original meaning is animal sacrifice for the god. And what happened later and the way this word was used referring to human, this was metaphoric meaning. This was kind of analogy. But where is the analogy? Let's get back to historical, biblical usage of Holocaust. Originally, Moses, his brother Aaron, they demanded from average people part of their property. They demanded to be treated in a special way so that they didn't need to work for their living. It was their people's duty to work for them and to bring them the property. So the origin of this whole horrible situation is humans' greed and exploitation of simple people, primitive people who don't understand the reality. This was just one smart guy who thought, okay, I will be speaking on behalf of God, and whatever I will say that the God told me, people must do it, because otherwise I will threaten that the God will be angry and he will punish them. So basically, he was demanding for growing and growing population of Levites, which are his family. So this is the story, basically the story of family clan. Family clan who was ruling and exploiting the nation. Because no matter what they demanded from their people, they were always speaking on behalf of God and always threatening that if they don't do it, if they don't give them and share with them their property, the God will punish them. Originally, they said those are offerings for the God. But we know that gradually the part for the God was smaller, more and more symbolic. And it was called, after all, a memorial portion. A memorial portion, so a small portion. So the portion for the God was smaller and smaller. So it was called a memorial portion, which was burnt and aroma was pleasing to the Lord. The rest of offering belongs to Aaron and his sons, and this part, the part consumed by Aaron and his sons, so Levites, which are growing in number, it is the most holy part of the food offerings presented to the Lord. And huge part of Torah, the 5 books of Moses, are describing those laws imposed on simple, primitive people who were forced to bring part of their food, of their livestock for the priests, because they were said that the God demands this. But after all, we know what was the purpose. The purpose was to feed the whole family clan of Levites. Before I will try to answer why this animal sacrifice Holocaust was all of a sudden used referring to genocide, before I will do it, I want to once again remind that, because this is very also important to remember, there is nothing unique in this biblical idea of offering the God animal sacrifices. And it tells us how much ununique is the Bible, that there is no new idea of the God personality, of the human's relations with the God. If Moses copied the idea of communicating with God and trading with the God via animals sacrifice, he just copied some other ideas he could observe in Egypt, because those ideas have been omnipresent in most of the ancient world. This can tell us a lot about origin of the Bible. Is the Bible written by the God or not? If generally it describes more or less similar ideas which were omnipresent in ancient world. So let's read about it. A Holocaust or animal sacrifice served a social or economic function in those cultures where the edible portions of the animal were distributed among those attending the sacrifice for consumption. So it's also very, very important to remember that edible portion of sacrifice was consumed by Levites in the case of biblical stories. So just one family clan, they had food for free. Animal sacrifice has turned up in almost all cultures, from the Hebrews to the Greeks and Romans, Egyptians, for example, in the cult of Apis, and from the Aztecs to Yoruba. Religion of the ancient Egyptians, for example, forbade the sacrifice of animals other than sheep, bulls, calves, May-calves, and geese. So we see how much similar are Hebrew holocausts to Egyptian animal sacrifices. They also preferred ruminants. Let's get back to description. What is so special about the biblical Holocaust that someone could have had this idea to use this name to express the tragedy which occurred later? Biblical animal sacrifice has one very unique feature, and it's very, very important to emphasize that it's being continued until today, and it's massively occurring also in Poland. And it's called kosher and halal slaughter. The idea of this particular practice is that the animal is not only not allowed to stand before the slaughter, it's not only about being immobilized in a slaughter cage which must be a horror. I can imagine the emotions of this animal where it happens, when it occurs, because he knows that something is really wrong and he feels so helpless. He cannot move, he cannot escape, he cannot fight. It must be incredible. But that's not only this. The method of slaughter, which is precisely described in Talmud, which is a further description of Torah and how to. And according to tradition, Moses was the first butcher who was teaching the butcher methods. Actually, the book of Leviticus, biblical book of Leviticus, is already called Butcher's Manual. But there are further instructions. How to make sure that the animal is conscious and experiencing extreme unimaginable pain until the last second. It is forbidden to cut the spinal cord. The general idea is that animal must be fully conscious, fully aware, and fully experiencing an unimaginable pain. Have you ever been to a dentist, and have you ever experienced any treatment before anesthesia was applied to you, or without an anesthesia? Do you know what it means to touch the nerve? Like, whoa, you are in shock, and long after you cannot. It's difficult to calm down after touching the nerve. During kosher or halal cut, the nerves are cut. It's unimaginable pain. During this kind of slaughter, there are several mechanisms providing an extreme pain, unimaginable pain, but at the same time they make sure that the animal does feel this pain and he will experience this pain till the last drop. And it's unimaginable. So I always tell you, I personally don't have a problem when James Aspie or Gary Jurowski is comparing. Basically, they are comparing death camps to. They don't compare Holocaust. So there is some misusage of the word, because they are presenting death camps. So they are presenting concentration camps, and they make analogy between concentration camps and factory farming. So I don't have any problem with this, but I have a huge problem when vegans say it doesn't matter which way the animal is being slaughtered. Being killed is being killed. It doesn't matter. I have a really huge problem. And I will ask those vegans, okay, supposingly you are going to have a surgery. Let's say a heart surgery on open heart, or whatever. They will cut whatever part, okay? You're going to have a surgery. So does it matter, or it doesn't matter at all whether you will use anesthesia during the surgery or not? Is it important, or it's no difference? Because I had a surgery on my spine 1.5 years ago, and for me it mattered a lot that I had anesthesia, and otherwise I can't imagine. So I think for animals it also makes a huge difference whether they are being slaughtered in Western standard, being stung, or kosher or halal method. It's a huge difference. And I hear, of course, metaphorically, I hear the animals begging, please, kill me, but the Western method, civilized method, please, kill me, but not kosher, only not kosher, everything, only not kosher, not halal killing. Please kill me, please shoot my head. I don't want to go through this horrible pain. But okay, let's get back to why this Holocaust, which we already know that it originally refers to animal sacrifice, and traditionally and until today is being executed in extremely horrible, sadistic way, giving to an animal an extreme, unimaginable pain, while making sure the animal is experiencing the most extreme available in this on the earth pain. This is Holocaust. This is the true meaning of the word Holocaust. Why somebody had the idea to use this word referring to human? Of course, this is my interpretation, but I have strong reasons to use this interpretation because I see a lot of this kind of thinking in literature, for example, Holocaust-related literature, because we have a lot of this literature in Poland, because who were those Jews? And first question, who were they? Majority Jews or partially Jews? Who were they? To whom the word Holocaust refers? Of course, they were Polish. If they were Jews, they were mainly Polish Jews. So the literature is mainly in Polish, and we have a lot of it. And this is what every Polish kid is reading at school. So basically, I suspect that they use this word Holocaust, referring normally to animals, to human, to express that human were treated as badly as normally animals are being treated. Someone wanted to express how extreme the situation is, comparing the fate of humans to the fate of animals. So by default, it's animals' typical fate. By default, it's the way animals are treated. You treat the animals this way. We see those kind of expression multiple times in literature, that people were being treated like animals. In concentration camps, people were treated like animals. They were killed like animals. They were shot like animals. And I think in every language we have some idioms like this. I don't know how many idioms picturizing the abuse while using the symbols of animals you have in English. I was searching, so for sure I found something like, for example, shot him down like a dog. If either man tries to beat the signal, it's my duty to shoot him down like a dog. So I see that in English you have a habit to compare shooting a person to shooting a dog. So by default, the dog is supposed to be shot. It's like typical situation to shoot a dog. Yes? Okay, I see. When she wanted to arouse a man's interest, she treated him like a dog. She treated him like a dog. What does it mean to treat him like a dog? So I see multiple times shoot him like a dog. Very often I see shoot someone like a dog. And probably, I'm sure you have many more this kind of expressions in English. In Polish, we often say beat someone like a dog. So in Polish language, the default situation for a dog is being beaten. For example, we use comparison to a cow when we want to say that somebody is stupid, so stupid like a cow. When we want to express that somebody is ugly, especially with a combination of being fat and ugly, then we will compare to this person to a pig, or you look like a pig, you are a pig, meaning ugly and fat. But there are also many those kind of expressions describing various kind of abuse and always comparing to treating the animals. Yes. So Holocaust means kind of extreme abuse normally being occurred towards animals, and to express how horrible the situation of people treated in this way in, for example, concentration camps, somebody used a metaphor comparing humans' fate to typical animals' fate. Did those people, or that person who had this idea, were fully right doing this? Were people in concentration camps tortured to death or just killed in humane way? So I'm afraid that the situation of concentration camps rather reminds us so-called humane type of slaughtering anybody. So I think I would rather question whether that comparison was right. Alright, but I won't make any problem of that, because tragedy is always tragedy. And we know that while majority of people in concentration camps were killed in so-called humane way, in gas chambers and or shot, which can be compared to the slaughter with while animal is being stunned. But I will not fight against it, because this was the huge tragedy. So it's okay. But however, there is another maybe a lingual problem, because while using the word Holocaust, James Aspey or also some other vegan activists, basically they express the images of concentration camps, which is not exactly the same. Holocaust doesn't equal concentration camp. Maybe we can say that concentration camps were one of the means of the Holocaust. The Holocaust was the full plan, strategy of extermination, the whole ethnical and social groups. And also, this is very, very important for you to be historically and politically correct whenever you want to fight, for example, against James Aspey or Gary Jurowski, because some of you are trying to suggest that Holocaust referred to Jewish extermination. And vegans should never do this. Why? Because Jewish are just one group among all other groups subject to the plan of total extermination. And especially if you have this image when talking about Holocaust, if you have this image of concentration camps, and then if you mention Jewish, just Jewish, that means you're segregated groups of victims into higher level victims and lower level victims. You may visit the official website of Auschwitz. There is also English version, so it is no problem. So Auschwitz was the biggest, it is the biggest and most famous concentration camp. I have been there multiple times. So I have seen those, for example, gas chambers and the ovens where people were burned, and I have seen those conditions. So unfortunately, I would say this is far from Holocaust, but it's okay. Tragedy is always tragedy. But it's very important to be correct and say that Auschwitz concentration camp was set up for Poles, not for Jewish people originally, yes? And Poles were the first political prisoners there. So if you will speak, while speaking against James Aspey or Gary Jurowski, if you will say that generally Holocaust refers to Jewish extermination, that's horrible, because that means that half of the victims you discriminate. Okay, so Jewish joined later. It all started in 1940. 1940, 8,000 people were registered, and almost all of them were Poles. There were also small numbers of Jews and Germans. We should never also forget those Germans who opposed to official politics of their own country and who opposed to their own leader. Because if you want to make better category of victims and lower category of victims, I don't know if I wouldn't especially set higher those brave Germans who were living there, who were surrounded by people supporting this policy and who had the courage to oppose to it. Okay, but originally the first victims were mainly Polish. It started in 40. The mass deportation of Jews to Auschwitz began in 42 and radically changed the makeup of prisoners' population. After 3 months of deportation in mid-42, Jews already made up the most numerous ethnic group, and their share of the population rose steadily from about 46% in June 42 to about 68% at the peak of the camp's population in August 44. A total of about 40,000 prisoners were registered, and among them 205,000 were Jews and 195,000 were non-Jews. So we can say like almost 50-50, like or maybe 51% were Jews and 49% approximately were non-Jews. So about 50-50. So you cannot refer the word Holocaust to Jewish extermination without piecing off all other groups of victims. And this is unfair, and this is something that vegans should never do. There are no better victims and less important victims. Okay, so Holocaust in this contemporary meaning of Holocaust of 20th century. Who was subjected to it? Who were those ethnical and the main ethnical and social groups? So of course those were Jews, those were Polish intellectual elites, Polish clergy, those were also homosexuals, so also German homosexuals, and it's very important to remember about this. Who else? Communists, of course, gypsies. So there are several ethnical and social groups. To summarize, the modern meaning of the word Holocaust is genocide or the planned extermination of several ethnical and social political groups. The original meaning is animal sacrifice for the god, and despite the fact that those sacrifices are not anymore being a sacrifice for the god, so the practices, biblical practices of extremely sadistic way of slaughtering are still being perpetrated in Jewish and Muslim communities. So, being precise, we can obviously refer a Holocaust to kosher and halal slaughter. To be precise, we can directly call Holocaust referring to kosher and halal method of slaughter. This is Holocaust. If making analogy of modern Holocaust to factory farms and standard slaughterhouses, I think the term concentration camps or death camps would be much more precise. And actually this is the word, the first notion which came up to when my son saw whatever footage from factory farm or slaughterhouse, but especially factory farms. When he sees this, automatically he says, oh, death camps, oh, concentration camps. This is what everybody who have ever visited, for example, Auschwitz, every Polish who has some idea how it looked like, because we are reading those books about it at school, so we know how it looks, and it is in Poland we can see it, how it looks. So yes, this is like automatically it comes to our mind, this comparison. But I think the most precise is to say concentration camp. Holocaust is not so much precise, because Holocaust is rather the strategy, and concentration camp is one, maybe the main mean of executing this strategy. And please be politically and historically correct also if you fight against making any analogy of factory farming to modern meaning of the word Holocaust, while remembering that it's been used almost 300 times in biblical in so-called positive sense. As vegans, we must fight with those so-called positive meanings of horrible words. Thank you very much, and see you soon again.